One of the things that I want to change with my DIY laptop is I want to change the LCD panel. First reason is I have a new keyboard. I'll tell you about this one later. A new keyboard that I plan to use with it, which is bigger than the last one, which is this one here. And this new one is roughly the same size as my current laptop, actually. So it would be really weird to have a 14-inch screen with a laptop this big. You've got these big blank areas around it. The other reason is that there are some things about that LCD panel that I didn't particularly like. The big one being it's not true color, as in it can't show 16.8 million colors. So while I'm looking for that, I thought I'd show you some of the how to look for an LCD panel, what kind of factors you might want to pay attention to. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I'm looking at is the size. As I told you, I want one that's going to make it roughly the same size as my laptop screen. So I'm looking at about 15.6 inches. So I've set the minimum and maximum size to be between 15.5 and 16 inches. This website, by the way, panellock.com, is a big database of all the LCD panels that you can find. The next thing, of course, is the resolution. So my controller has a maximum resolution of 1920 by 1080. So I'm looking for a panel that has that size. If you have a controller already, like I do, then you're looking for one that uses the same interface. So in my case, it's an EDP, or embedded display port. If you don't have a controller yet, then maybe you can do the other way around. First buy the panel and then look for a controller that uses it. But in my case, I've got the controller already. After that, you start having different things that you're looking for that might have be a trade-off. For example, it's nice to have a bright screen. So for example, I've set it here to greater than or equal to 300. But at the same time, because it's a laptop, you want the power consumption to be low. So obviously, the brighter your screen, the more energy your backlight's going to use, and hence the higher the power consumption. So those are like two opposing requirements. It's also a good idea to have a high contrast ratio. So I've set it to greater than or equal to 500 to 1. I think my previous panel was 500 to 1, which worked quite well. A high contrast ratio usually means you can see the details and the colors better. After that, something to pay attention to is the viewing angle. Some LCD panels have a very narrow viewing angle. These days, they all seem to be relatively decent. If the viewing angle is too narrow, then if you're sitting off to the side and looking side on, well, at an angle, the image quality drops, and at some point you might see the colors invert, so white areas become black. So you want a nice wide viewing angle. And after that, and this is where the biggest failing of the LCD panel that I bought, it was the best one I could find at the time, but you want true 24-bit true color. And in the case of the panel that I bought previously, it was 6 bits per channel, so red, green, and blue, so an 18-bit display. And that means that it can show 262,000 colors. And that's decent, but you can see banding where you shouldn't see banding on the screen. And you wouldn't see it if you had a true color LCD panel. And just a warning there, because let's have a look at, let's have a look at this panel. This panel says it's got 16.2 million colors, and then in brackets 6 bits plus FRC per color channel. The FRC stands for frame rate control. So the panel is physically 6 bits, and it simulates a higher number of colors by flickering the individual pixels on the screen to try to you make your eye think that it's seeing something in between the different levels. That's why it says 16.2 million instead of 16.7 million. So avoid those, because if you've got sharp eyes and you can actually see it, the detail is not as, the color detail is not as good as a true color 24-bit panel. For example, this panel says, where is it? 16.7 million colors, 8 bits per channel, so 24 bits. So I would just say avoid the 6, if you can, avoid the 6 bits per channel, was it 262K? Let's switch back. I can get this wrong so easily. Yeah, 262K, and avoid the 16.2 million color ones, which are actually 6-bit panels with a software rapid switching trick that it does. The final thing that you, especially if you're a gamer, that you'll want to pay attention to is the response time. Now, I haven't got the response time on this table, but if you look at this 24-bit panel, its response time is, they say, around 11 milliseconds, which is not too bad. But if you compare it to the panel that I bought previously, the one that I currently have, if you look at its response time, it's 3/7 milliseconds typically. So it just means, what that means is that it takes time for the panel to change the pixels color. So when you're watching a movie, or if you're playing a video game, you want that to be as fast as possible, because otherwise, if you see something moving across the screen, you'll see this little ghost image behind it as the pixels are changing color to what they're supposed to change to. And finally, if you look back at the database list, you'll see I have chosen the In Production tab. If you're just buying a panel for yourself, you probably don't care about this. But if you are, if your project, for example, in my case, this DIY laptop project of mine, I am considering making it and like selling a kit to other people. So I definitely want a model that is in production now. If they're discontinued, then you're going to have to rely on supply in warehouses because they don't make them anymore. And if you run out, in some cases, let's go back to the previous page. In some cases, an LCD panel might have, for example, this one has 3 compatible panels. So that means there are 3 other LCD panel models that you can unscrew your old one, take it out, and replace it with a different model, sometimes even a different brand. If you're lucky, you might still be able to get those. But if you want to guarantee that over the next year or 2 or whatever, that you're able to buy the panel, and you want to produce more of whatever you're creating in your project, then really, yeah, make sure you look for models that are in production now and not discontinued. Now, there are more factors that you might want to take into account. I haven't listed everything, but those are the ones that I'm paying the most attention to. I haven't actually picked the LCD panel yet, but I thought it would be useful for other people looking. What kind of things should you pay attention to? Anyway, that's it for now. I'll see you next time.